So this is sort of a mock-up of a gopher trail I used with some rope. The actual setting of the traps is described on the instructions of the traps, and it's pretty easy to follow. You just have to make sure that you get your hand back up in there and you dig out an area that's deep enough and wide enough to set the traps in there so that they're not in the access hole that you're using, but actually in the tunnel of the gophers. Now the way I set this up, I use this prod, or this probe, and this actually is the kind that they use for structural pest inspections, and it's just a strong metal rod with pokey end, and when you're using it to find a gopher tunnel, just kind of gently push it into the ground. This could be in grass. Oh, there you go, there's a tunnel right there. It just kind of gives away. Don't poke too hard because there could be a sprinkler line in there, something else, so just be real careful. Just kind of go in there, and you can see, like right here, I was poking and wow, that just gave away, and I know that there's a tunnel under here, so that's going to be an area to dig, and I'm going to dig an area, you know, about this size that I can cover with pieces of cardboard or wood, plywood or something that's going to have a little opening there that they cannot resist a little opening for the sunlight. They are driven to go into that area and fill it up with dirt, so that's what's going to get them into the traps. So anyway, this is going to be my path, and I'm going to show you how to set the traps and double down on this. So here's a mock-up of how the traps are going to be set, and the rope, of course, being the tunnel, and taking it for granted that there's a hole there and that these traps are tucked back in. Now this one I have set so you can see how they look, and you notice that this rope here is coiled around this tree. These traps impale the rodent and they don't kill them right away, so if you don't have them secured with a rope, they can take off down that tunnel. And also that when they're injured, they will try to backfill, and so make sure that you have some really strong rope on these, because you're going to have to pull. And also put the rope on this side. Don't put it back here, because you're going to want to pull. They're going to throw this paddle here, and it's going to impale them back here, so you're going to want to pull from this end. So make sure you put the string or rope or whatever you want to call it here and not there, because you will be pulling it backwards and then twisting it, and you won't be able to get it out. You're going to have a clear straight path out the tunnel by having it on this side. You notice that this way on both of these. So having it just around the tree and then tuck it back into the hole, and that's gonna keep those traps from going too far back in. And I have had these packed in and way back in there, and they are very, very difficult to get out if there's a lot of dirt and stuff in there. So you're gonna have to tug on it, make sure this is strong. Same thing over here. Basically set up so that it's the traps are back in to the tunnel on both sides. Now the thing is, and this one of course is, I'm just using my probe as an anchor here, so I'm making sure that this is anchored. I just have a loop around this, and so this is called doubling down and using 4 traps, because you don't really know where they're coming from. And even with this kind of setup, you may have to do this a couple days in a row. Generally speaking, once you disturb this rodent's environment, you might have to wait until the next day. And then when you pull the cardboard or the wood off, if they've been in there, you'll see that they will fill that hole up with dirt. So you're going to have to be patient and wait for, I don't know, you can go back and check after a matter of hours, or just wait until the next day. It's up to you, but just realize that they're kind of spooked when you go in there and start messing around, and they're not going to come out right away. So they'll kind of make sure that there's no activity in the area. They can feel and hear your footsteps mostly. So leave the area real quiet and come back every 4 or 5 hours or something like that, and just be patient. So if you haven't ever seen one of these set off, I'm going to go ahead and do this. So let's say the rodent comes from this direction. I don't know, is there a little den or something here? I have no idea. I am just finding the path, and I can't see underground. So this is an abstract, but basically if they're in an area here, or maybe they're branching off somewhere here, I don't know. I'm just catching 2 sections of a tunnel, and what's going on anywhere else, I don't know. So I'm not going to set up any more than 4 traps, because quite frankly that's a lot of work. So anyway, so they come in, they're going to go over this area, and then once they try to get to an area that's open, like I'm going to leave a little area light here or here, and once they push this paddle, that's it. These 2 things will impale them, and it's just a matter of time before they're expired. There's 2 sets of traps, and I ended up running the leashes together and using the probe to anchor those leashes so they can't take off. You'll notice that I cover the edges of cardboard, and I just cut up a box, pieces of cardboard 6 by 16 or something like that. The little triangle in the middle is the sunlight hole that drives the gophers crazy. They will go through the trap and get, stuck just by their need to completely enclose their tunnel from sunlight. They just can't have any sunlight coming into their tunnel. This is a visual from the top. You can see I have 2 holes that have 2 sets of traps, and the edges are covered so that no sunlight gets in around the edges. Here's a close-up. It's a hole probably around the size of a quarter. It's not that much bigger than that, and I overlap the cardboard so that no light comes in except through that little sunlight hole. And that's what I recommend. This is the way I have the leashes wrapped around my probe, and that, to me, once you drive that probe in, they won't be able to pull these traps back into the tunnels too far if you have it leashed off like this. Good strong string, and here's a sideways view of that, and it looks kind of rustic, but then I have gloves on, and I just brush the dirt off when I want to check inside there. And sometimes the dirt will come in if they're in there and they're backfilling, even if they're stuck in the trap. I went up the next morning, and the sunlight holes had dirt in them. So that means the holes that I used to set the traps were completely backfilled by the gopher. And so there was some activity in there, and I'm going to pull the covers off both these holes, and I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead a little bit. I'm narrating over this because the audio quality wasn't so good, but there was a dead gopher in there. I don't think there's a need to show you the carcass, but there was one caught in there, and it was the one back towards the fence. But so this is how I store these when I'm done. I do leave the string on. I wash them very well, and I put them in a bucket and then spray them off because they're going to be covered with dirt, and so is the string. And I leave the string on there. It's nylon, and I just wrap each set with the string, and then just put them in this thing. You just kind of leave the lid a little bit loose so they don't rust, and stuff. So I'm in a pretty arid climate, so I'm not really afraid of rusting and stuff like that, but I don't screw it on too tight, because if there's any residual moisture in the string, then that'll dissipate over time with the lid being a little bit loose.